very good morning to everybody. Welcome to the AIM Digital Solutions webinar this morning, the topic of which is taking the data pain out of your McCloud project. My name is Steve Ackland. Just to give you a quick overview of the areas we're going to be covering today. So first of all, there'll be some introductions to my colleagues. Secondly, we then look at the background to McCloud, putting the data challenge into context. That will be delivered by Andrew Marson. Thirdly, AIM and how we're using new technology to meet the data challenge in McCloud. And Matt Smith will provide a demonstration of DataBelt platform in that. I will then come back after that and share some takeaways from the session, followed by a summary and close. So the guys will introduce themselves as they lead on their relevant sessions, but just to say that Andrew Marson is as a thought leader and expert in pensions, and particularly in pension administration. Matt Smith is a data scientist with expertise, particularly in pensions data and pension data management. Obviously, will lead on the McCloud use of new technology. And as I say, I'm Steve Ackland, and I will be your facilitator this morning. So the objectives really today are twofold. First of all, to understand the McCloud data challenge, and secondly, seeing how this new technology, AI, artificial intelligence, can save time and cost, reduce risk, and improve accuracy to allow you to complete your McCloud project successfully on time to budget. Just before we jump into the sessions, though, we asked everybody who was registering for this session 3 questions. I'd just like to share with you some of those answers. So first question was, overall, how would you rate your missing data challenge? And for that, we had that 41% said they were in the red, so that was work to be done there. 59% amber, so work had started, so identifying what data they would require. No one, of course, at that stage was in green status with progress having been made or completed. The second question is, what stage is your data collection process at? And for that one, we had 47% said that things had already started, although 53%, so that's over half, said things hadn't started. Then finally, question 3, when do you plan to complete your data collection by? Well, 18% actually were in good shape, so they said 0 to 3 months. 58% thought 3 to 9 months, and just under a quarter, however, were saying it would take over 9 months. So again, some work to be done there from all those who shared this information. So thank you for sharing that. So without further ado, I will introduce Andrew Marson. Andrew will say a little bit about himself when he goes into his session. I'll give us a background to McCloud, most importantly, the data challenges as he sees them. So I'd like to introduce and ask Andrew to take the floor. Thank you.
How can we help administration and payroll teams with this really significant challenge? And so then when partnering with the guys at AIM, what I found is actually I think this is a really useful and highly relevant technology that we can apply to the challenges. I say, well, okay, what are the challenges? So in terms of the overall project, you'll have a whole range of work streams, and across, well, what about our data, what about our processes, what about our recalculations, how we're going to make decisions, how we're going to project manage the whole thing, what about the communications with the members. So a lot of areas to be considering if you are leading and involved in the overall projects. But what we are really focusing in on, where we zoom in on to try and help both pensions and payroll teams, is that we are looking at how can we help with the data. And the reason that we do that is because we feel that teams are facing those very common big three challenges of resources, time, and money. So when we think about the data challenges that we've got here, it's going to, whether you are in pensions team, the HR team, the payroll team, it's going to take skills and experience to be able to know where to look, and then when you're in the right place, know what you are looking for to try and find missing data. And those skills and experiences are generally in short supply. So that's one headache that we feel that projects will be faced with. Naturally as well, although the government response to the consultation brought some relief by saying, well, actually, we'll change the implementation date to October 23 for sorting all of this out. There is still a lot to do. So time is a pressure as well. And then finally, of course, money. Everybody is absolutely keenly focused now on making sure that they get best value out of money that is spent. Local authorities, participating employers, pension funds are all under significant financial pressures because of everything that we know has been happening over the last year or so. So those are the challenges. And then when we say, well, okay, what about, let's really think about the data. What is it that we can do to help? And where you will see the technology come into play is that, when you're having thoughts and conversations about, well, what have we got in terms of our data? So you could start with perhaps in the pensions admin system and say, well, what is the actual data that we've got here? And you may look at your main admin system, but then you think about, well, we might have lots and lots of interface files going back many, many years. We've got images that we might want to look at, or even, a lot of data is exchanged through email exchange between departments. So there's a lot of data out there, and what we have is the opportunity to really look in all of those places to gather as much as we can. But I think equally it applies to what about payroll teams, and say, or HR teams where they've got their whatever current platform that they're on. But again, they may have images, they may have even switched platforms, and have they got their legacy data that they can go and look at. And with so many disparate systems, so many separated data sources, that's going to involve under perhaps traditional methods, I'll call them, that's a lot of legwork, that's a lot of people time, and it is very time intensive. So I've been hearing conversations about, well, how far do we go? How far can we proportionately spend our time and money, and what do we do with anything that we can't find? And what you'll see today is an opportunity to push that boundary as far as you possibly can to get all of the data that you know and that you've got. So as well, you'll be able to see today is that whether you are the pension scheme or the HR team or the payroll administrator, is you've got an opportunity to bridge together all of your correspondence and all of your data, so you can bring together, as you collate, as you gather, as you analyze all of that data into one place, which provides a control hub for the entire project. So that's really setting the scene. And of course, what you'll see today is that this is technology, and it doesn't matter how much resource you throw at it in terms of, we'll talk about robots, and it doesn't matter how long they work, because they'll just keep going. And what you'll find is that everything can happen much quicker, and we will find much more. And what that does is, as well as giving you that greater level of completeness and a greater level of accuracy in the data that you have, it will also free up the existing resources that you have in terms of their skills and experience to start to concentrate and look at areas like recalculations, areas like communications with members. So using that data and using their skills to better drive forward the project. So that's what we'll see today. And at that point, I'm going to hand over to Matt to walk us through and talk us through seeing it in action.
Great. Thanks very much, Andrew. Hello, everybody. Pleasure to meet you all this morning. I'm just going to share my screen. So just one moment. Steve, I think you might need to give me access in order to do it. It's just saying host disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay, one moment.
Thank you very much. Just while Steve's doing that, I'll just introduce what I'm going to be showing you today then, and also introduce myself, of course. So I'm Matt Smith. My role is actually head of pre-sales at AIM. So I look after the initial engagement that we have with our clients, and I run a lot of demos, and we do proof of concepts and health checks and data health checks and the like. I'm also a data scientist, and additionally, I'm one of our solution architects for our DataBelt system, which is what we're going to be having a look at today. Now, in terms of the demo, the first step is all about working out what in-scope members we have. And so I'm going to show you how we integrate DataBelt with your admin systems, use a SQL query to cut those members down. So we're going from the 50,000 or so down to the 30% that we're actually interested in. What we're then going to do is use DataBelt to enrich that data, and we're going to be pulling in data from different sources in an automated fashion, and we'll actually see how our data quality as part of our McCloud project actually increases over time. And we're going to run a data quality report at the end to show how it's much higher. How's that looking, Steve, in terms of the sharing?
You're ready to go.
Perfect, thank you. That should just load in a second. And once we've done that, what we'll also find is maybe there are certain bits that we're missing. And I'm going to show you how there's a little bit of data that we might not be able to get. And how do we use DataBelt and its indexing capability to tease that out from within our data estate somewhere. So there's going to be a little bit of information. It's to do with part-time hours. And what we're going to do is actually index our entire data estate. And what that means in the DataBelt context is it sends all its feelers out into all our different files, all our different folders and file locations. And it indexes our data and it allows us to search on it. And this could be everything from emails, correspondence. It could be scanned letters that have come in. And what DataBelt does is it actually uses OCR technology, which is optical character recognition, to transcribe the data that's within that letter. So, you've got a handwritten or a typed letter that's come in. It's been scanned on to your systems. DataBelt will then be able to automatically transcribe that data so we can do a search on it. So I might want to search for everything that contains part-time hours and my member's member number, for example. What it also does is automatically transcribes telephone calls. So where we're pointing it at the contact center database, or where all of those phone recordings are saved, it really cuts down the time in trying to find information. And I think we've all been there where we've manually tried to go through loads of telephone calls to try and find out where a member said a particular thing, or where one of our employees said something else. And because they're all automatically transcribed, we can then search on keywords, and that information will be brought forward to us. And that's another example at the end that I'm going to show you how we can enrich our data. So really the three main steps are getting our in-scope members, enriching it with data from various sources, whether that be spreadsheets, internal systems, external systems, as long as we've got access to them. And then the third bit is actually indexing our entire data estate, which is an incredibly powerful thing. And then using that to fill those tiny gaps that we might have left over to enrich our in-scope McCloud member data. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. I'm now logged into DataBelt, and I've started off on my view page here, and I've done that for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's very colorful and eye-catching, so I like to start here. But also, this gives you an idea about what DataBelt as a product actually does. It's a very sort of broad, wide-ranging product with a lot of capability. Now, on the left-hand side, you'll see we have our data forensics, fraud detection collection of microservices. And each of the tiles that you see here, these are basically launch pads to allow us to create a case within the system. And I just wanted to talk about what we mean by case. Obviously, we're used to that being a case possibly being a request from a member, perhaps. And in DataBelt, it's obviously slightly different. However, it's also slightly similar in that a case is just a vehicle to get us from the start to the end of a process. And what you'll see as we go through me kind of doing this McCloud project within DataBelt is I'll create a couple of cases that help us go from start to finish for a particular data cleansing process. So we've got that data forensics thing on the left-hand side there. We also cover things like data classification, data protection, GDPR, and also things like data blueprints. You can actually see a hierarchy of your data within your organization. But of course, the focus for today is on our green section, just to the left here. And the reason for this is because AIM has a long-standing pedigree in the pensions world, you know, a decade or more of experience there. And so what we wanted to do with DataBelt, although it is you know, industry agnostic to a degree, we can deploy this in any vertical, is we do have a dedicated pension section. And you'll see we have a couple of different tiles here, things like data health checks, but specifically focused on pensions data, things around GMP, etc. But then the most important thing for today's demo, of course, is the bottom left tile, which is our McCloud multi-data source cleanse. And that's where we're going to be spending most of our time today within that case. What I wanted to do as well, though, before just sort of jumping in and showing you how all this works, I wanted to give you a little bit of an understanding about the prerequisites that we need. We can't just deploy DataBelt and then start creating cases. You know, we need to have a couple of prerequisites in terms of what we're integrating with, in terms of systems and certain rules that we're setting up. Although it does actually come out the box and in terms of rules to help with a McCloud project. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to jump into our CMDB. Now this is our configuration management database, and you know, it looks very complex. There's a lot of data here. The best way to think about this is it's a map of your organization in terms of all of the databases and the file shares and the servers that you have. And DataBelt will go off and automatically find this information for you. And the reason I've come here is that this is where we actually integrate with your admin systems. And all I'm going to do, just down the bottom left here, just do a couple of filters to get to our database class. And here are a couple of databases that we can integrate here with. One of the things I just wanted to mention, you may see Karmastone Global or Karmastone Global Insurance when we go through this. Don't worry, it's just a fictional organization that we have within our system. Whenever you see any things related to Karmastone, you can replace that with your organization's name. And so what we do is it's very simple. We basically point DataBelt at the database that contains your member data, or databases, of course. And we just give it a couple of credentials. You know, you need some sort of login details and the like. And it's able to actually scan all of the information that you have on that system. The second step is then to train and teach DataBelt about the type of information that your system holds. And I'm just going to show you an example of one of the ones that I've done for today's demo. And that's just going to load down the bottom here. And what it's going to show us is a preview of that data, so the top 3 rows that it finds. And you'll see we've got a number of different columns going across here. So we've got things like you know, member's title, first name, surname, etc. So our first task when it comes to setting up DataBelt is just teaching DataBelt, training DataBelt on the types of data that we're interested in when it comes to our members. And all we do is we go through each of these columns here, click on the top row, and we assign what's called a widget. And a widget is basically a data specification. It's a blueprint for what that data should look like. So as an example, the title field, we have a title widget. And what that does is basically defines what data can exist in there, Mr., Mrs., Doctor, etc. Similarly for member status, payroll number. These are all bits of data that are different and, sometimes and most of the time unique when it comes to our members, but they all follow a certain format. And we want that data to follow a certain format because it tells us that it's good data, it's good quality data. So we go through each of these columns and we assign those different widgets. It's not just about teaching DataBelt, though, about the types of data that's coming over. Like, is this a number field? Is this a text field? It's also about having various transformation rules. And a good example, if we have a look at the sex column here, and we've got the value of male in one of our examples, imagine what we're trying to do is enrich our member data with, a council database, a legacy payroll database. They may be set up different. So instead of that sex field containing the word male, it may contain M. And what the widgets also do is contain those transformation rules. And this is part of the setup that we do. Every organization is unique and has unique data setups. And we would put in those transformation rules into those widgets so that when we're crashing together all this data within DataBelt, it's not making our data worse by giving it M instead of male. It would enrich our record with M, and then DataBelt will automatically transform that into male so that we can enrich our data and not actually pull its data quality down by giving it stuff that it just isn't going to recognize when we look to then re-import back in or export as a spreadsheet. So that's what we do in terms of integrating with the admin system, and then also teaching DataBelt about the types of data that's there, and also the various transformation rules that we're interested in. Our next step, and this is our second and final prerequisite before we can actually go on and start creating some cases here, is to create what we call a template. And you see, we've got a couple of different examples here. We've got a weekly data health check template. We've got an import of HR records. And then, of course, importantly, at the top, we have our McCloud data gathering and cleansing template. And I'm just going to open that up and show you what it looks like. And what a template is, it's a repeatable job. And we need to tell DataBelt, what to do with this data. Once we've integrated with that admin system, and once we're grabbing all this other data from other sources to actually enrich our member data, how do we do that process? And it's templated so that we do this job once and then we can repeat it without having to do the same legwork. And so this is what the template looks like. And it's very simple. There's basically 3 steps here. The first step is these top 3 rows here. And this is all about defining and telling DataBelt which sources of data are we interested in and how are we crashing them together and enriching our member data. And the first bit I'll talk about is actually at the bottom. So this one here called McCloud members in scope. This data source here is actually our admin system that we just integrated with that I showed you on the previous screen. And what we have here, instead of pulling in everything, it's great to be able to enrich our member data, but we might want to make the job a little easier for ourselves and just focus on McCloud for the moment. So DataBelt is clever in that we don't just have to pull in everything and enrich it. We can be specific. And so our first task here is we actually created a SQL query to pull down to the 30% or so members who are in scope. And I'll just show you very quickly. DataBelt comes with a SQL query builder. You can do it with the traditional sort of SQL statement, or you can use like a natural language processing. So actually typing out what you want and it converts it into a query for you. So that's how we create our SQL query. So the first step there when it comes to our template, our job, is defining where we're getting the data from, but which members, possibly not all of them. The other bit then is how are we enriching that data? And I've got a couple of CSVs here, a couple of spreadsheets, so a council payroll database and a legacy payroll database that we've got our hands on. And the hope may be that perhaps we don't have national insurance number in our admin systems, but maybe we can grab it from elsewhere. It's that type of thing that we're looking at here to enrich our data. And if you remember, when we integrated with the admin system, we had to do that widget mapping. We had to tell DataBelt the types of data to expect. And we do a similar process here. So where I've told DataBelt that we're looking to enrich our member data with these two spreadsheets, we also go through a process that you can see at the bottom here with assigning widgets. So for instance, we have our preview here, top 5 or so records, and our title column, I've mapped it to the title widget, and so on and so forth. So that's training DataBelt again on all the different bits of data that we want to crash together, what we're interested in, and how we're enriching it. And then the next bit is our destination section. And this is basically telling DataBelt, right, once you've done your job, once you've enriched our data, got it from, 70% up to 90%, what are you going to do with it? And we have the option of actually re-importing that data straight back into our admin system. Or, of course, you can actually just extract that as an Excel spreadsheet in case you want to do any sort of off-system calculations or tweaks and changes before then re-importing it back in. And that's a repeatable job now. Now that we've defined that, we've done that legwork, we can do that as many times as we want. We can also throw in different sources. So it may be throughout our project, we've been working on these two CSVs, but then actually another database becomes available to us. And we say, you know what, we want to throw that into our McCloud job. We want to rerun it. And we want to see if that makes our data any better. So that's how we set up our template and our jobs. So the great thing now is that our prerequisites are all done, and we can now go ahead and create a case. So I'm going to come back to our My View page. And of course, the one we're interested in here is our McCloud multi-data source cleanse case. And I'll just click on Proceed at the bottom right. And what this is it's going to be carrying us. It's a vehicle that carries us through our project. And all the different queries that we do, all of the actions that we do in terms of cleansing our data is all auditable, saved within this case, so that we can look back at it later, see what we did at what times. We can also use it as communicating between different teams. So I can send a message from within here to another team to ask for some data. I can share my results with other teams, all using this case as a vehicle for our entire McCloud data project in terms of enriching the data. So simply, I've got to fill out a couple of fields here. I've got a summary. So let's call it McCloud if I spell it correctly. You see we have a status here. So if we had multiple cases going on, we've got an idea about who's working on what and what stage they are through the process. We can also assign a service level agreement. It's possibly slightly less relevant here as this is, kind of more project work, but maybe we could create an SLA there that is in line with what the government's saying in terms of when we need to get this done so that we can then track against that. And then we just go ahead and create our case.
Matt, it's Andrew. I was just going to just quickly ask. So here is where I wanted to highlight that this is where we are effectively bringing together different teams, isn't it? So now, as cases are created, they can be handled, allocated, tracked across the myriad of pensions team, employer payroll teams, HR teams, across things like participating employers and such like, yeah?
Absolutely. So you could have different cases for the different teams, or actually you could have one overall case that those different teams have access to. So this is the collaborative working platform that DataBelt has. It's not just about individuals going off and doing searches. It's about bringing different disciplines and different people together with a focus on a specific issue. And then in this case, as it were, mind the pun, we have our McCloud case. So you're absolutely right, Andrew. It's about bringing teams together and bringing heads together to solve a problem. Okay, so what I've done is I've just, the case has been assigned to me, and now I'm telling it to kick off the next step of the process. And you'll probably recognize these. These are the job templates that we saw earlier. That the next part of the data cleanse process is to specify which job we want to use. And of course, we want to use our McCloud job here. So I'm just going to select that. And this is actually going to show you quite a few jobs, of course, where I've gone through and been testing this process as part of the webinar preparation. But we can just go ahead and create a new one here. So just to explain what this is a new instance of the job. So where we have this templated process that's saying bring this information together with this information and then export it back into the system, you could have multiple iterations of that process. And so that's what we have here. Okay, and all our job does at this stage, if we just scroll down a little bit, you'll see that the 3 different data sources, and some of them are blank at the moment, and some of them have got a little bit of data in. So I'm just going to explain what these are. So if you remember from our template, we said we want to bring in, here's a SQL query, we want to bring in our in-scope members, we want to enrich it with data from 2 spreadsheets, and that's what this is telling us here. Now, of course, our databases are ever changing. You know, day by day, hour by hour, they change, and it could be the same with the spreadsheets. You know, we could be exporting a fresh version of the spreadsheet for this part of the project. So our task here is just to sync everything. So I click on the sync button at the top right here. This is going to pull in a fresh version of our member data. You know, we could have created this template weeks ago. We want to be enriching who we have in our database at this moment in time, not 3 weeks ago. Similarly, with our CSVs here, we just go through a process of selecting our CSVs, specifying that it includes a header, and then uploading. And what that does, this is now giving us, again, another preview of that up-to-date data. So the top one here being our in-scope members, we've got a preview of the top 3, and then going down, we've got a preview of our spreadsheets as well. And now that I'm happy with that, I just go ahead and merge sources and process those, and it will do its number crunching, and it then provides us with our validation results summary page. And this is the thing I really like about this, is that you'll see here we have 880 validation rules that have been processed. And what I mean by that, the validation rules are what those widgets are doing. So it's saying where I'm pulling in the national insurance number that I was missing in my admin system, that, you know, pulling in that national insurance number from the council system, for instance, it's then running it against a validation rule to make sure that it's good data. You know, if it's got 1 letter and 1 number in it, it's probably not a good national insurance number. It's not accurate. So we want DataBelt to actually reject that data, and it will do that automatically. Additionally, where it might be pulling through M instead of male or vice versa, it's understanding that actually, no, my admin system is slightly different to that other database, that other source database that I'm grabbing this information from. So I want to transform it automatically so that when we're enriching our data, we're improving its quality, not bringing it down. And let's scroll down. This then actually shows us what that data is looking like. And this is paginated, so I can move through the different pages to have a look at this. I can export it and review it. But what DataBelt is doing here is actually showing us a crashed together version of our member data from our admin system and the other 2 databases. And it's showing us how it's crashed them together to enrich that data. Now you see a few different colors going on here. Yellow is simply a warning, and this is whatever the widget decides a warning is. And in the case of surname, first name, and title, it's where we're missing that data. The marital status and also the sex as examples, you see we have a couple of red blocks in there, and that's showing that we've got some data that the widget didn't know what to do with it. So where we may have had some rules in there that say, if it's female, transform it into F, maybe our widget didn't take into consideration the fact that it may say femaler or MLE, where we've simply got somebody who's actually just been spelling something wrong. And what this means is we can actually go back to our widget and update it with common spelling mistakes and say, you know, if somebody's said femaler, then convert it to F for me. And I'm just going to show you within this screen how that would work. Let's actually change it back to female. DataBelt will now actually run the same transformation rules against that value now that it's changed. And you'll see just in a couple of seconds, it's going to change from femaler to female and then to F. And it actually tells you that entire validation and transformation process. And there we go. It's now blue, which brings us on to our next color. The blues are the things that have been automatically transformed by DataBelt. So I'm just going to go through and correct some of these issues that we've got here. So I'm going to change that to male and update my marital statuses. And as I said, when you first run this, it actually gives you an understanding of possibly some of the data issues that you have in those source systems. And it allows you to then go back and actually correct those within your widgets. So that's how we see the validation breakdown. It's an overview of how those different sources are going to be enriching our data. And we can run this quality check report, and I'll run that at the end, and it will show you, based on all the different bits of data that we're interested in, how many instances of that data did we find, and what data quality was it. And you can see here, we're now looking pretty good in terms of our data quality. What we can also do is a duplicates check, and this is the thing that's really key here. As an example, I'm just going to show you the next screen to show you how we run this. What we now want to do is tell DataBelt that, you know what, there could well be some duplicates here. That's the whole point of this process, is to find Matt Smith in our admin system, also find Matt Smith in another data source, and crash those together. And what we do here is specify, well, how do you find what's unique about a member? And what we have here, I could say, right, I want to do matches based on national insurance number, last name, and date of birth, as an example. So where those are the same, I'm going to tell DataBelt, you know what, you found the same member. That's who I want you to crash together to improve that data quality. And we have an example here, our revenue Monroe or revenue Shepherd. We have a duplicate there. So let's open up that screen. And you'll see we do have some data differences. And if I scroll over to the right-hand side, you'll see the last day of service is actually different. And this is where we can start making decisions. And we can start saying, you know what, the last day of service in our admin system, we're confident with. We don't want to take incorrect data from another system and bring our data quality down. And that's where we then tell DataBelt about how confident we are about the last day of service. And we can click on that value, we can edit it if we wish, or we can actually specify, when you find this, what should you do? Either you do nothing, I don't want you to bring in incorrect data and muddy my admin system, or I want you to merge the data. In this case, it's a bad example. You don't want to be merging two dates together, but maybe you have a text field and it's good to have both bits of information. Or actually, you know what? Yeah, we do have an issue with our last day of service in our admin system, and we want to enrich and replace that from elsewhere. I can tell DataBelt, please start replacing this information from those databases elsewhere. So that's our duplicate check. We come to our validation breakdown. We review the findings of DataBelt. We specify what data looks good, what data doesn't look good, based on our widgets and also our understanding of certain data quality issues we have in our system or elsewhere. That then allows us to crash this data together. Now, one of the other things I promised is not just this automated process, but how can we index our entire data estate of our organization to help plug some of these small ad hoc gaps that we might have. And there's an example I'm going to show you. If I scroll over to the right-hand side here, we have a field here called part-time hours. If we have a look at the second one down, this is a Dr. Kirkby. and we don't have the information there for Dr. Kirkby. And this is just an example about how I'm going to show you how possibly we can find out that information from data that we already have access to. It's just hard to get traditional access to it. So instead of me having to, call up the member or the employer or whoever it might be, I'm going to do everything I can internally first to improve that data quality for my InScope McCloud members. And the way I'm going to do that, I'm going to create an index of the particular data that I'm interested in. So let's go to our CMDB, just like we did before. And this will all become clear. I'm going to play you a video as well, which helps visualize what actually is going on in this process. So my task here is to find out what Dr. Kirkby's part-time hours were for, a particular date and time, or whatever the challenge might be. And I think I might have some emails about this. I think I might have some telephone calls. I think I might have some scanned correspondence about this. So I'm going to see what I can find. And I'm going to do that by creating an index. And this is what the index creation screen looks like. An index is basically a snapshot of your data. DataBelt sends out its feelers to wherever you're sending it to, and it indexes a load of stuff. So it finds files, it logs what the file name is, it logs what the file size is, what the file type is, but then it also does some really clever stuff, which is on the right-hand side here. I'm not going to talk about video parsing in this example here, just because it's something that is possibly less relevant than the other two things. OCR, optical character recognition, you may remember I spoke about this earlier. What this is doing, when DataBelt finds a photograph or a scanned image of a document or whatever it might be, it will go through and it will transcribe the text that it sees within that. And I'm going to show you an example of how it does it. So let's say we've scanned on some correspondence from Dr. Kirkby's employer, but we haven't given it a good file name and it's kind of disappeared into, a database somewhere. We'll be able to transcribe all the information that's within that correspondence and therefore pull it back within a search. We also, of course, as I mentioned earlier, do the audio transcription side of things. So where we're pointing DataBelt at our contact center phone recordings and the like, and we want to find where somebody has mentioned Dr. Kirkby and part-time hours in the same telephone call, we might want to bring that up and have a look at it. Additionally, as well as a matter of course, it will be indexing emails and the like, and I'll show you that as well. So that's how you create an index. It's really simple. We give it a name. We specify a indexer, which is the worker that actually does this job, the robotic worker, and we provide it with a path. And I'm going to show you one that I've already created in Blue Peter fashion. And it's this one at the bottom. I've just got a McCloud demo folder that's sitting on our shared drive, and this is what I've indexed. And it's a relatively small one. It only has 11 files in, but it took 3 seconds to do quite a lot of complex stuff with those files in terms of optical character recognition and audio transcription. And this is what it found. So we found a few JPEGs, so a few images, a couple of spreadsheets, a couple of email messages, a couple of telephone recordings as well. So I know that this probably looks like quite a good candidate for what I'm looking to search on. And what we would do as part of a DataBelt rollout is those would all be done kind of, that prerequisite piece that I did at the start where we did those two things. Indexing you can throw in as another prerequisite. We would get that done at the start of the project so that when you do need to find out the answers to these important questions, you can just go off and do so without needing to do this index process. And my next step then is to create a case. So you remember we had our case for McCloud. We also have a data deep search case, which allows us to interrogate data. And that is what we're going to create now. And again, just for the interest of time, I'm going to find you one of the ones that I've created already. But it's worth saying that actually the searching process is very quick. And the reason for that is that all of the tagging and all of the audio transcription and the like is done at the indexing stage, not at the searching stage. So here's an example. Now, just while that's loading, I did promise that I would play you a video. So just one moment, let's pull that up. So this is a real-time visualization of what that indexing is actually doing. It's very small, admittedly, so I'll just see if I can full screen it. You'll see all these little workers whizzing around, and what they're doing is actually going to all the file locations that we've told it to go to, and they're then doing that robotic process that I mentioned around things like the audio transcription. So finding those contact center recordings and transcribing them, doing things like finding scanned documents and photographs of documents and transcribing that data so that we can search on them and read them. And so that's just a nice visualization, I think, to help understand what that indexing process actually does. And these are all those little robotic workers that are whizzing around and doing that job. And all we do, let's say this is our query builder. I might search for Kirkby because that's the member I'm interested in. And the thing I like about this is we can assign a fuzziness level. And I'm sure we've all been there where a member's name's spelled incorrectly. So maybe Dr. Kirkby gets called Dr. Kirby, often. And this allows us to have a little bit of fuzziness with our searching. The right-hand side, we say, where do you want to search? We can search everything or that specific index that we created. And DataBelt then presents us with this query. And here we go. DataBelt, therefore, has scanned, had a look at that index, and it's pulled back everything that matches the search term that we had. So those are our results at the bottom. And if we have a look, there is an MSG here. This is an email message that we found. Now that's quite an easy. We can do that within Outlook. However, depending on your credentials, you might not be able to find emails that are from other people or to other people. So DataBelt allows us, as long as you have the ability to do so and the permissions based on what your organization is confirming is okay for you to do, you can actually go ahead and scan a lot more of the emails and find out the relevant data. And you can see here, we have an email from the employer confirming the answer there is 20 in terms of part-time hours. The other thing we have is a couple of audio recordings. So if I load this up here, you'll see we have a transcription here. Now I'm quickly going to download that audio recording and just play it very briefly so you can hear it. Yeah, you might not be able to hear that over the Zoom, but that is our audio recording and it's been automatically transcribed. And the fun thing here is you'll see that actually the HR manager did say Dr. Kirkby's name incorrectly. We've got a Dr. Kirby here. However, because we have that fuzziness capability within the search, we've still managed to pull this back, and we will go off and confirm that this is the Dr. Kirkby that we're looking for. And again, you can see our 20 part-time hours are confirmed within the audio recording. And it's great because I don't need to sit there and listen to the audio recording because it's all transcribed within here. And then finally, we also have our transcription and OCR, optical character recognition translation of an image. And again, we've got a message here. This is a letter from John Smith confirming the 20 part-time hours there. And if we download the original, I'll show you what this looks like. And this is just a very poor quality photograph of a letter that I've taken. Of course, your scanning systems will be infinitely better. However, it just proves how even a photograph of a document like a letter like this, DataBelt can actually take in, index and allow you to find so that you can make your in-scope McCloud member data even better. So what I would then do is of course, go back now to our validation results summary page. And I know I can now, with certain level of confidence, go to my part-time hours section, update that for Dr. Kirkby, and then I can run my quality check report. And this is something you can run at various times throughout the McCloud project. And we can see, if I load this up now, that our data quality is now sitting at 99.58%. And these are all the different widgets that it's checking, and it's working out whether they've passed validation or failed, and therefore giving you a success rating there of a very high percentage figure. So I'm conscious of time, so I'm just going to very quickly confirm what we've done here and go to a relevant screen. So we've told DataBelt, here is our admin system. Please grab the in-scope members. Please also go off and grab data from different sources and enrich that data so that we've got better McCloud data to make our calculations against. Additionally, we found that, even from that enrichment process, there were some gaps. We couldn't see Dr. Kirkby's part-time hours, and there are probably some other gaps in there as well. However, because we have all these conversations, with our members, with the employers, that data may sit somewhere within our organization. And using DataBelt's indexing capability, because that's really what its strength is, as a data governance tool, that's what it does best. We're using that indexing capability to answer those difficult questions and update our in-scope member data. So that is me done, and I'd like to hand back to Steve or Andrew just to close.
Okay, thanks very much indeed, Matt, and thank you very much indeed. Just to finalise, so thank you very much indeed to Andrew and to Matt for sharing that. And I think really some takeaways from this process that we've just heard from two experts in their fields is obviously data is absolutely key to McCloud. Everybody knows that, and one of the key issues around it is to make sure, of course, that that data can be located and discovered. But it's not just about that, it's actually also about cleaning that data. You can't just simply use data, which of course is inherently has issues with it. So I think the key area here is to discover and also to clean where necessary, and that really will enrich the data layer to do the correct calculations. Using technology, new technology that we all know about, goes under the heading of artificial intelligence, is something that can be used to make this process far easier, far less resource intensive, far more accurate, reducing the risk, most importantly, through all the areas of understanding and locating and cleansing of data, as we've already said. And I think the other point around collaboration, as we well know, McCloud is a multi-team collaborative process, and having a system in place to allow you to do that will work best, and does allow that joined up process, which possibly at the moment is a difficult thing to achieve. So some good things there. The consultation process, as I'm sure from the government, as you know, has now come out. The April 22 date is still key in terms of really everybody understanding what the roadmap's going to be, although the extension for payment of benefits has now been defined as into 23. Sorry if I said April 22, is now the payments now into 23, October 23. So there are some key dates that people can hold to. So when we ran through our original stats on what answers were, obviously people can now plan, I guess, to those particular dates to make sure they are in place, and McCloud is treated accordingly. And I think really just as a final comment around this is that, as we well know, pensions and data to some degree have a little bit of an unhappy marriage from time to time. Getting your data into good shape is not just important for McCloud, it's important for all the other challenges that there are in pensions data, and it's very, very important that you have a program, a process for ensuring that your data is in good shape. It's at times like McCloud, pensions dashboard, GMP equalization, where it becomes clear that, again, keeping good housekeeping on your data is absolutely fundamental to managing a pension scheme. And if you do have any questions or want any assistance or help or advice, then obviously please feel free to contact us, and we'd be very happy to get back to you, Andrew, Matt, or some other members of the team. And just to say that this has been a recording taken of this webinar, and it will be published, and we'll send a link out to those of you who registered but weren't able to attend, as well as those who attended. Thanks again for those who did attend, and we will be organising other webinars, some on McCloud, some on other challenges in pensions administration, pension management, where obviously data is absolutely key to this. So thank you for your time, and wherever you are, we've obviously been broadcasting from London and Yorkshire today, and Kent as well, which is very, very snowy out there and cold. So keep safe, and we look forward hopefully to either hearing from you or talking to you next time round. Thank you very much indeed, and good day.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
you.